now we're going to get into a really exciting chapter, which is chapter 11, which is talking about aggregate demand and aggregate supply. So basically, everything we learned about demand and supply from a micro level, like basically what you and I would do, what a small business would do, right? So those factors of supply and demand. Now imagine everybody, so all of the demand and all of the businesses in one graph. So that's what we're going to be looking at with aggregate demand and supply. We're going to be looking at this from a macroeconomic level. So the demand side is going to be everything that is demanded in the economy. What we mean by that is we're talking about everything that is being bought in the country. So we're talking everything from the consumers, we're talking everything from the businesses like investments, we're talking about government expenditures, and then we're also talking about everything that you buy from another country and anything that another country buys. So that's where it's going to be C plus I plus G plus NX. On the supply side, we're talking about everything that is being supplied. So basically all of the production that is being made. So some economists can be a supply side economist. What we mean by a supply side economist is everything that is happening in the country. Basically, these people believe the only reason we have demand is because we have the supply to do it. Then there's also people that say that there are demand side, meaning the only reason that we have supply is because people are demanding things, and that's why we have supply. So basically, people believe supply is the most important determinant of the size of a macroeconomy, and then demand just tags along. Basically, it's like looking at what do we focus on first? Do we focus on, do we focus on the production of it so people can have things to buy? Or do we focus on demanding things first so we can make the supply happen? All right. So basically, there are two ways of thinking about it. A successful economic approach would be taking into account both of these. All right. So let's introduce one of these things called Say's law. Now, Say's law says that supply creates its own demand. Basically, each time a good or service is produced and sold, the only reason that's happening is because of the demand for it. So because we have the supply, we're then creating the demand for it. So each time a good or service is produced and sold, it represents income to someone. So basically, the only reason we can produce something, right, is because you have the money to do it. So basically, because you are employing someone to make something, they're going to have an income to buy something. So because the supply is happening, this gives you the income to demand something. So supply is creating its own demand. Say's law is the one that says that supply creates its own demand. It does seem like a good approximation for the long run. Basically, because you're able to have this big circular flow happening of you're using your income to buy things over periods of years or decades, as the productive power of an economy to supply the good or service increases, the total demand in the economy grows at the same pace. So basically, in the long run, that circular flow goes a little bit faster. In the short run, it's going to take a little bit longer for, you get enough production to make an income to buy things. But in the long run, we can definitely see this going faster with more population. So over the shorter time horizons, like a few months or years, recessions or depressions can occur in which firms as a group seem to face a lack of demand for their products. So basically, over the long period of time, we can see how supply creates its own demand. But in terms of a shorter time where we could have the business cycle, where we do have contractions and recessions, this is where we're going to run into things where we're not going to have enough supply, not enough income, and then we don't have the demand for it. So that's how Say's law works. Supply creates its own demand. The other one that we're going to focus on is called Keynes' law. Now, Keynes' law says demand creates its own supply. Keynes' law can apply well in the short run. When many firms experience either a drop in demand for their output during recession or so much demand that they have trouble producing enough during an economic boom. Okay, so because demand is the one that's driving the bus, basically, then this is going to influence the supply. If demand was all that mattered, then government could. So basically, that's that side where basically the demand is driving the bus. Okay. Now, here's the argument against that. Because if demand is all that mattered, then government could just make the economy larger by just buying a lot of things through increases in government spending or increasing tax cuts to increase consumption. So basically, the idea is that, well, if you're saying that demand is the one that matters, then let's just keep buying things. Let's just produce a lot of money, right? Let's just make it, print it, a lot of money to where we can just buy a lot of things, because then we'll have a big economy. That's the issue here with Keynes' law, is that, yeah, if you're demanding things, this is really going to say, like, hey, I want to buy this, produce this. Okay, so that's good. However, if we go to the very extreme of, like, well, let's just keep buying things, then we're going to have an issue of, in the long run, where we could have inflation, or we could have an issue where we're not producing enough things. So Keynes' law does work in the short run, where it's like, hey, I need this, produce this. It does work there. But in the long run, we're going to have an issue where we could have inflation because we're trying to buy too many things. All right? So in the next video, we'll introduce aggregate demand. All right. So in this video, all we talked about was Keynes' law, which was demand driving the bus. Say's law, which was supply driving the bus. Okay. And as we said before, we need to take both sides to create the macroeconomy. Okay, I'll see you there. Bye.